Good morning, everyone. As you guys know, I'm Courtney, and I'm a residential realtor here in San Diego County, and I'm so excited to share our very next episode of Raising Your Real Estate IQ. As you guys know, this is really just great information about real estate that either people don't know or have misconceptions about, and I'm just super excited to have our next guest on. This is Stacey from Ticor Title. So thank you so much, Stacey, for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're so excited. And we're going to talk about a number of things. I know most people are like, yeah, title insurance. Obviously, in your world, it's like, so important. But a lot of homeowners who have the benefit of having title insurance don't really even know what it is. They don't know too much why it's even important. So my goal today is just to talk a little bit about what title insurance is, kind of some important steps to securing it and like why we need to do certain things. How it can protect, and then also just I want to share at the end some really interesting stories that kind of go to show why it's important, and it's kind of a simple concept, but it really jumps out and helps us. It's kind of unique, so that's kind of the goal for today. So let's
Sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, first thing, what is title insurance and how does it work?
Oh my goodness, title insurance is one of those things that you don't know you need or don't know you want until you have a problem. And, I've been doing title for 25 plus years now, and it is always a reoccurring thing that people just don't really understand what the point of it is. And then on the rare occasion that they find they need it, they're really glad that they have it. So title insurance, what we do is we do a deep dive on your property and determine what your property's pre-existing conditions are. That's really our big job. Is we go in and, like other insurances you have, whether it be health insurance, life insurance, title insurance is not different in the sense that we do a deep dive on what's going on, and then we kind of let you know what your pre-existing conditions are. And that's, so you get a title insurance policy that covers, things like if there's subdivision map act violations, if there's access issues, if there's zoning violations, permit violations, someone else has a claim to your property. All those kinds of things are part of your title insurance coverage. And what we do when we kind of go in there and do the deep dive, we tell you what's there so that you have a clear understanding of what it is that you're buying.
Yeah. And I've seen things on there before, like, CC&Rs, and it actually gets you a link to go see what those restrictions are on the property. And then there's also like maps that show like easements. You could see if a neighbor can drive over your property, so they can get to theirs. So it's like so like all encompassing. But I love how you shared it, like the deep dive that kind of helps to understand what the pre-existing conditions are. And I know a lot of buyers just want to sign the paper. Oh yeah, I read it. But I really encourage all of our buyers to like click on all the links that are existing on that report to dive in and make sure that you're comfortable.
You just said two really, really important things, Kara. So people often they don't really understand conceptually about the title report itself. And you just brought up the CC&Rs, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions. That's always when I'm doing any title training or talking to buyers on a property. CC&Rs is always the example that I use, because we're showing you, if we say, hey, we're going to give you this title policy, here are your pre-existing conditions that wouldn't be coverable events for you. CC&Rs is something that everybody can relate to. They understand what that means. It's a little bit more of a common theme as opposed to, easements and things like that. So if we miss CC&Rs on the title report and your client buys the property and they have 10 dogs, let's say, for example, and the neighbors come and say, you can't do that. Well, if the CC&Rs say that they can't, then they can't. But if for some reason the title company missed the CC&Rs, then that's where you would have a title claim. So that you just hit the nail right on the head with your example of the CC&Rs.
And so what would a title claim look like? Because I'm so grateful that you guys have done such a good job for all of my clients. We've never had a claim of any issues, but would
Yeah.
that be, engaging an attorney or a lawyer to get involved to kind of settle the issue that wasn't included in the report?
Right. Yeah. So, if something like that where we missed CCNRs, we would work with the new owner to try to remedy, a solution that works for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always cut and dry. So that's just something on a case by case basis. I'm working on something right now where there is, two owners, and they both have illegal lots, because back in the olden days, before you had to go through the process with your municipality
Mm-hmm.
to get to do transfers of ownership. Back before then, you could just give little pieces of your property to your neighbor and they could give a little piece back to you. Well, in 1972, that changed. You aren't able to do that anymore. But, we've got one now where one owner is not willing to fix the problem. And so the us as the title insurance company is going in and working with those owners, trying to get everybody on the same page and get it fixed. So that, is including having our lawyers step in. And so, it really is a beneficial thing.
Yeah. And it's not like Ticor. You guys are a subsidy of a much bigger title company that's national, and you guys have amazing resources, right? So it's nice to have somebody like you on your side.
Right. Yeah, that financial strength for title claims is really important. You want to make sure that you're working with the company that is going to be around for a long time, because if your title company goes away, it makes it a lot more problematic to submit a claim. It's you still can do that because somebody's taken over that file, but it definitely makes it a little bit more problematic.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk next a little bit, if you could share with us, what's the steps to securing title insurance? There's a couple key things that owners have to do or buyers have to do when they are going through the process. And then also a seller, what they have to do when they're selling. And maybe you could help us understand a little bit. That kind of gets, it sounds like there's some misconceptions or not quite always a lot of understanding about the needs of some of the steps.
Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely well said. So, you take a listing, a buyer comes in, they make an offer, you negotiate, you go under contract, and you open escrow. Well, at that point, what happens is escrow comes to us and says, hey, we have a contract where we need to procure title insurance. So we have our searchers and our engineers go in, and that's when they start that deep dive process. We go into the property with a microscope. We come back and we deliver the report to escrow. They disseminate that to the buyer and the seller. The seller is looking at it to see what kinds of things are on the property that are going to be needing to be paid off. For example, if you have a deed of trust, if you have any judgments against you, those kinds of things will get paid off through the transaction. So we do our deep dive on it, and then the seller looks at it and says, oh yeah, no, that we know that has to be paid off. Oh yeah, we do have solar, and that needs to be paid off through the transaction. Mm-hmm. So at that point, the seller would typically submit what's called statements of information. And that allows us to go in there and make sure that anything that might attach to their name, not just their property, gets addressed during the course of this escrow period. Mm-hmm. So it's as much for, I know it's a lot of information that people don't understand why we need it. But if you have a name like William Smith, for example, the more information we get to make sure that you're the right William Smith is advantageous. So that's why, we ask for things like, driver's license, social security numbers, and that all is secure within our system. And, we take that very seriously to make sure everybody's information is protected.
Yes, I've seen it before where somebody hadn't yet done that statement of information. And so somebody with the same name had like a $20,000 child support judgment against him. And the report had said that it had to be settled before the house could close, but it wasn't actually that seller's judgment, luckily.
Right.
So in the end, it was that statement of information that was helpful to get through and clear it up. Yep. Exactly.
Right. And then, we run those for buyers as well, because the lender, they want us to run it to make sure that there's not something on their name as a buyer that could possibly interfere with them getting their loan or being able to pay their loan. So that's why we run it for buyers. The seller is really the biggie, and the more common the name, the more that detailed information comes into effect.
Yeah. And usually it's like, last, 2 years of job history or address history, and like all kinds of things. You're like, oh, that again, it's like,
I know.
It is definitely important. So
yeah. And the thing is that, buying and selling real estate is always typically the biggest thing that us as consumers do in our life. So, we have a big job to make sure that, everybody is getting what they think they're getting, protecting everybody. And we take it very seriously. And, that information, I know it seems intrusive, but, it's a one-page document that it's information that you typically have in your head. It's just kind of a pain to write down. So.
Yeah, but it's overall sounds really straightforward for the limited amount of effort.
Correct.
To get all of that extra protection is huge, and it's nice. Right. So, and ultimately it helps to protect the buyers, the homeowners once they are owners, and the lenders themselves, like you already said. So it's just a matter of, ensuring that everyone knows what comes along with the property. And I mean, there's been things before that we found. It's just, there's so many stories we could say, but like, oh, this is a driving over community, and I have like a 33-year-old trying to buy there. Well, that was the historical information that is no longer, you guys helped us out with this one off of.
Oh yeah, that was recent.
Yeah, and it was like 55 and over. It's like, wait, we had the opportunity now not to be surprised by that, and now we can anticipate that in the future when they go to sell, they're going to know that that's on the title report. But you guys were able to provide documentation that it was dissolved and it's no longer 55 and over. But imagine if it hadn't been dissolved and nobody else knew, and it was, still there, and there was a restriction, and that soon after they bought, that they'd have to move out because they're not over 55. Like that would be.
And that's why you have title insurance. Yeah, if we would have missed those CC&Rs, and somebody under 55 had purchased that home, then and it became an issue. Then that's when you put in a title claim.
Yep. And I mean, it's like, what do you do at that point? You have to move them out and go help them find a comparable house, I suppose. Like, what do you do? It's just nice to know that there's somebody committed and financially obligated to help you. So that's
and Kara, one thing I wanted to mention just to everybody that's listening, title insurance, unlike other insurances where you pay a monthly fee or pay a premium twice a year or whatever the case may be, title insurance is a one-time fee at the close of escrow. So, and it protects you from everything that goes on from when you close to before that. So it's not a monthly fee. It's something that it's just a one-time shot there.
Yeah, that's actually great to point out. It's like one and done, and then you have that peace of mind for the future. So and you can own the house for 30 years and it still applies. So you can own the house for 1 year and it applies just the same. So
exactly.
Awesome. Okay, my favorite part that I'm looking forward to. I want to talk a little bit more about a few title insurance stories so we can kind of see, I know we've brought up a few as we've been talking today, but we can see, how this actually applies, because again, it's like title insurance is going to protect against some funky thing happening in the history of the transfer of ownership. But it's like, how would somebody not know that like Uncle Joe down the street actually owns part of this property and it got sold without him knowing? It's like, like most people are going to know those types of things, like who owns the house, but there's some really unique things. I just wanted to share maybe one or two stories. I know I have one, and you have one that you said is your favorite.
Okay, you go first. You go first.
Okay. But I just want to show people how like kind of the rubber meets the road with this. And again, it's title insurance, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's something that people look over so quickly, but it's like, it's amazing. You guys do such great work. And I had a home that my client was buying in Carlsbad, and my gosh, it was literally probably to the end of my career going to be the craziest transaction I've ever been a part of for many other reasons. It was kind of a notorious house. But in the end, it turned out that the listing agent had been the lender to somebody who bought the home through foreclosure. And they literally bought it on the courthouse steps. So there's somebody who was married at the time. His name was John, and he was married at the time where he lent the money. Well, California is a community property state, which basically means, I guess the most basic way I can think is, when you're married, you have equal ownership in whatever you do. Even if the wife doesn't know, the husband does something, they share that right. Interest in the property or the note or whatever it is. And so this particular person, John, he lent money to buy this house. Well, since that lending happened when they were married, they had since separated, and come to find out that wife had also become legally insane. So this is like so many steps removed. This person wasn't on the title, or I should say on the tax records. Like there was no obvious or apparent reason that this person should have any interest in the house. So when it came time, the title report was pulled, and you guys did your digging, and you found that this person who lent this money had interest in the property, and he was happy to sign off his interest when the house sold. But there's a wife, and then the wife had to sign off, but then you guys contacted them or her, and you found out that she wasn't able to sign on her own behalf. So it was just like, whoa, all these things. And in the end, Stacey, you were such a helpful person in establishing what the key steps were, because like, what do you do if somebody can't sign? And what if they don't want to? I mean, she was upset at him. It was a divorce. It was terrible.
Right.
And she was upset, so she didn't want to, and legally she couldn't. So it was just a really interesting thing that you found all of those steps, because now my clients who live there could have been terribly impacted if she caught wind that something happened and she was due money or proceeds, and that just would have been a big old mess. Right. So you kind of nipped it in the bud while we were in escrow. Yeah. And it was quite the challenge to get it figured out, but you did. So that gave the buyers peace of mind, and now they know that there's not going to be any other issues. Right. Or if there are, that they've got your back.
Divorce is always, it's sad anyways, but when it comes to selling your property, it is always good to start early like you do, Kara. Mm-hmm. I know when you take a listing, you open title with us so that we're able to do that deep dive on the front end, and we can remedy a lot of what needs to happen before you even go into escrow, so that if you got an offer and you wanted to accept something and do a 21-day escrow or a 30-day escrow, you're able to go ahead and do that, to do that. But oftentimes if you wait, there are things that are complicated that have to be worked out. So
and that's going to scare a buyer away. And luckily, in this case, my buyers were very happy to stay committed to the property, but it caused at least a week delay, which was really difficult. And we didn't want to, it could have been potentially longer, but you guys moved mountains to get approvals and come up with solutions, but it was easy.
Thanks. Well, and it's like oftentimes people don't know, when you take a listing and things come back and they look normal to, an agent or escrow, but when title looks at it, they're like, oh, wait a second, that there's kind of a red flag there. So, we use that term a lot, red flag. Yeah. So my favorite story, is, and I'm hoping it can translate. I'm a title geek, and things that I find interesting and fascinating, other people go, we don't understand. It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to try to tell the story where everybody can understand it, but I hope it resonates. So my favorite part of this story is that the neighbor of this vacant land looks at me as we're out walking his property, and he looks at me and goes, Stacey, I had no idea why I needed title insurance. I thought it was ridiculous. And now I'm super glad I have it, and I totally understand it. And I responded to him and I said, make sure you tell a friend. And he laughed. So this couple, they retired and they purchased a home on an easement road on a hill. And seemingly to people, they would be the top. Well, there was a vacant piece at the very top. And for whatever reason, it was just so happened that over the couple years prior to this, everybody down this hill had sold. And I happened to work with every agent that was, listing these properties. It was so I had ended up insuring like 4 of these pieces. So the very top vacant land was being sold, and the agent went and knocked on the neighbor's door and said, hey, I'm the listing agent here. I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be putting a sign here and you might see some traffic. And they said, you can't drive up here. You don't have an easement for that. Well, our title report showed that they did have an easement for it. And, the long and short of it was that we had missed an easement. And so we had to, we went to that neighbor that is right below the vacant land and said, could we, pay you for this inconvenience, and usually that's what it boils down to. When you have something like that, it's usually a financial fix, and, that's where you start. He said, you know what, we retired and we bought this property because nobody could ever drive up here and use this road. And so it's not about money for us. So you're not going to be able to get the easement. So we ended up having to buy the property at the very top of the hill.
Wow.
So that nobody else could use it.
Because you missed it. So you had to basically deliver what you said the property was. And that's how you did it. Wow.
Exactly. So we still own it. It's landlocked. So we pay taxes on it, and, we've made it available if they want to buy it, at some point and add to their property. But that's really the only person that it would be good for. Is for those people, because they're the only ones that have the right to use that easement road. But I think what I love the most about that story is, one, our company really stepped up and made it right for these people. Mm-hmm. And because usually it's a money thing. People are like, well, I bought it for the privacy, but, for whatever amount of money, I'm willing to grant the easement. So we stepped up and did the right thing by those people. And secondly, I loved how excited that this neighbor was that he finally understood why title insurance was so important.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it's my favorite story. But anyway,
it's great. It's like, 99.9% of the time you guys get it right, but there's that exception. And
these are all being searched by human beings, mm-hmm. and people make mistakes, and that's a big thing to consider. We mm-hmm. all do our jobs every day, and things get missed, mistakes happen, but what you do with it when there is a mistake is really where the rubber meets mm-hmm. the road.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I just love working with you guys, because you have always offered top-notch service. You've done things quickly. You find solutions to any challenges we have. And it's like, it just gives me peace of mind. Like, I don't get any benefit from working with you myself besides just that peace of mind and knowing that my clients are in, I think, the best of hands in this area. So thank you so much.
We enjoy working with you. You are amazing. Thank you for having us.
Yes. I know it's lots of people try to become our title reps, and we are so grateful to stick with you guys. I know, never changing. Thanks again, just for always being a resource, even today. Talking about what title insurance is, why, and how it protects us, and sharing the stories. It's been really, really great. So, to everyone watching, if you have any other questions, please feel free to comment below. And if you are curious about what's going on your property, whatever it is, just reach out and we'll be happy to be a resource. And as you guys know, I work in San Diego County, but if there's ever anything I can do to help friends, family members, anyone across the country, I could, be a resource in that way and make introductions. So hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Friday. And again, Stacey, thank you. And we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.